Photography is often considered a solitary endeavor. However, the career arc of any photographer relies as much on community as it does on talent and hard work. Community is a big part of achieving success. Yes, it provides important networking opportunities, but it's also a wellspring of encouragement and support. And that's the thought behind Black Women Photographers, which was founded by photographer Polly Irungu. With it, she's created a global community, an online database of Black women and non-binary photographers, which is becoming a valuable resource in the photographic world. This young photographer, who was originally born in Kenya, is currently a digital content editor at New York Public Radio, WNYC, where she is responsible for managing social media for WNYC's and PRX's The Takeaway. She's an incredibly busy woman, but nevertheless, she has found the time to be a valuable resource to many. This is Ibarian X, and welcome back to The Candid Frame. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
No, when I found out about everything you're doing, I was very impressed. I thought I was busy.
Oh, wow.
So many things, and I look at everything you've done in your young life. Oh, God, I'm a lazy ass boy.
Not at all. Oh, man, far too kind. I don't even know what it takes to do a podcast, so thank you. I do appreciate it. Just trying to do my part in any way I can. So
thank you. Well, first off, I want to start off with just talking about your beginnings. You immigrated with your family from Nigeria. Is that right?
From Kenya.
Kenya. Oh, my apologies.
It's okay.
I got Nigeria in my head, but Kenya.
No, the Nigerians are everywhere. That is for sure. They are everywhere. But from Kenya, yes.
All right. But you were just 4 years old and you moved to Kansas?
Yes, sir. Why Kansas? I still don't know. I know my dad had a host family set up, before he came to the States. That helped him get situated and everything like that. But yeah, grew up in Kansas, which granted, I'm of all the 50 states. But, for me, at least, I was able to grow up in a pretty diverse community. I grew up in a very traditional Kenyan upbringing. To this day, the only dishes I know how to cook are related to Kenyan, Kenyan dishes. So, there's that. For me, it's okay, I spent time in Kansas, but then there's my mom's oldest of 12. So we have, relatives in Missouri, Chicago, spread out across the Midwest and also in West Coast and then in Canada. So I was able to, have all of that in my upbringing when I was in Kansas, which was nice.
I grew up in Los Angeles and my parents are from the Dominican Republic. So there were Dominicans here, but they were all over the place. It wasn't like living in Miami or New York where you have a real concentration
right.
of them. So I was really aware of my otherness because I would be around, people would look at me and assume that I was African American. And the Latinos didn't expect me to speak Spanish, and they would look at me oddly. And I always just felt like, where do I fit in? Was that a similar experience for you?
Honestly, it's funny you say that because, for me, yeah, because as later as I got older, when I was still in Kansas and I hung out with other Africans, I never felt African enough at some points because I came when I was 4, and when I came, I actually had to have a speech tutor. I mean, I didn't learn English until maybe I think 6. It was really hard because I combined English and Swahili and Kikuyu, our tribal language, into one language that only my mom and my sister could understand for so long when I was young. I was like a baby, only them understood me, and I had speech tutor and all of that. And so, eventually when I am older, when I'm in my middle school and then my first year of high school, really in my middle school years, when I was hanging out with other Africans, it's they all knew Swahili and I didn't. So I felt out of place. And then also, when I did have my outside of Africans, it's my other just Black friends and other friends in general that are Americans, them, it was there's a lot of cultural like things that I didn't understand until much later. A lot of just, from TV shows, the music to the food, like a lot of things I wasn't exposed to unless I sought that out on my own or was introduced by, friends who introduced me to that because my parents didn't know. It was weird at times, but more so, I guess, when I went to Oregon is where I realized, oh, I'm a little different, like, because I joined, like, I could tell this later, but like, fast forwarding to like when I actually did my undergrad at the University of Oregon, a PWI, and I was part of BSU and ASA, the African Student Association Club. But like a lot of times when I was at BSU, it's like I didn't know about the movie Friday. I didn't know about all these different staples that I should have known. Just different cultural things like that. I also later caught up on. Between then, I was just like, I thought I was doing good until I realized there's whole parts of, American culture, Black culture, that I was missing out on because of my upbringing. So.
Oh, yeah, when someone says, bye, Felicia, you go, you know Felicia? Who's Felicia?
Exactly. I was like, oh, that was hilarious. I didn't really understand why it was a thing until now.
Do you find that now, considering what you do, that otherness is sort of an advantage?
I think so. Actually, I think so because, for me, I find that I can adapt to any community. I've lived in Kansas, I lived in Oregon, I lived in Arkansas, and I lived in Virginia, the DMV area, and being exposed to all of those places right there are different communities. And now in Brooklyn, which is huge, right? And so for me, I feel like I could really be able to like talk to anyone and everyone. And with the community that I'm building, Black people are not a monolith, right? So all of them are so different in their own way. A lot of them have different upbringings and perspectives, and the next person right next to them don't have. So for me, I'm learning from them. I think they're learning from each other. It's still early, but I see that. I see how we're all so different, but we're all, tied to like similar experience.
What did you find your college experience like, being that you were a Black woman, in terms of having your perspective and the way you saw things sort of validated, or, with respect to the stories that you wanted to tell and how you wanted to tell them? What was it like for you?
I think with this community, it's like, I don't have to like preach to them that, all the ways that Black women are not heard, Black women, all the barriers that we face or anything like that, because they all get it. They all understand that. And, for myself, it's like, I think now more so that, I still find myself, struggling to get that point across to everybody. I think people get it, but I don't think people really understand the extent of it. And so for me, it's like, at least with these folks, I have that solidarity. We have that camaraderie. I mean, it's unfortunate that, different things like that is what brings us together, because we all understand at one point or another, we all felt at one point, like, for, not feeling valued, not feeling seen. One person the other day, tweeted that, she felt like she's been screaming about Black women photographers for years and no one has heard her. But then she feels like I'm able to give like her a megaphone to be able to get that message heard. And to me, that's like huge. I'm like, whoa, I didn't realize it like that. The more I think about it, it's like, it's just, it really, like, what I'm doing is so simple because it's like, I'm not the only one doing it, but at the same time, it's also special because of all of us who have been like brought together so quickly, and we're all recognizing the fact that we're not alone in our struggles. We're not alone. We don't, we're not the only ones feeling this way. And I think, for that reason, like, I've been able to, continue this because a lot of this work, I mean, as you know, is exhausting. It takes a toll mentally because it's not my first time yelling to the void about Black folks and Black women. And I've also been, yelling about this for a while. But now, for whatever reason, I feel like people are actually listening.
Well, it's, the circumstances right now with, what's been happening in this country with race, with not just the issues with the law enforcement, but just the inherent biases and discrimination and the way it pervades so much life here, regardless of whether you're Black or not in this country.
Right.
I think it's helped to bring it to the fore. But as you said, there are issues that have been happening for a long time. But I wonder, why do you think that it was up to you to do something about it, other than, be one of the voices yelling into the void, to actually take the initiative and make something happen with Black women photographers?
That's a good question. I mean, for me, it's like, you can only yell for so long, right? You can only really just do that for so long until you feel like, what's the point anymore? Or you can think of a way to do it in a more productive manner, rather than just, I mean, granted, it's not to say that doing that doesn't work. We've seen a lot of ways of how people, taking it to Twitter and brands and everybody else, like quickly changing whatever, or issuing statements because of public pressure on Twitter. So not saying that doesn't work, but for me, like, in order to really actually bring the kind of things that I have been like longing for the programming and things that I'm doing with the Black women photographers, a lot of it's just things I wish I had. I wish I had more of a community. When I first picked up my camera, I wish I had other Black women I could turn to, other Black women I could like follow and talk to about whatever the case may be. And so a lot of that is just surrounded, centered around like my experience, but also, as I've been doing this, I've been able to talk to more and more of them and hearing what they need and what they want. And, for me, it's like, how can we take it a step further? Like, for me, it was like, okay, how can I, seize on this moment where people are actually looking for ways to help Black people, looking, for tangible, like concrete, more than just retweeting or liking a post. Like, people are like, how can I help? And I was like, here's one way. And so like the first thing I did was the COVID-19 relief fund, because I do have a full-time job. So for me, it's like, I can take a step back and not take photos and I'll be okay because of my job. I recognize that. And so that was like my first step of like organizing and really trying to take it a step further, because, for so long I've relied on other people to, advocate and, assume, what I want. But I've realized, while all these organizations are doing great work, I can't assume that they know, what I'm looking for, unless I make it known to them. And a lot of people, a lot of us, it's just like, it can be really intimidating. How do you like reach out to an organization, say, I'm a part of an organization, but I'm feeling like this, and is there anything you can do to help me, not feel like this? I don't know. It's like, I don't know where I would have started, and I don't know like how I would have started that conversation kind of thing. And so for me, it's like a lot of people just feel like they can just DM me questions at any time. And I'm like, great, because, that's what I'm here for. So I'm here to be like that resource and really just trying to take it a step further than, just a simple retweet or people simply like following us. Like, I want it to be more than that. And so for me, I guess that is just slowly like what I'm trying to do, is really just try to capitalize on this moment for them and for myself, really.
So how are you hoping that it's utilized? Because it can be used as like a one-stop resource for people who are interested in finding photographers of women of color who are photographers. But as you mentioned as well, that you wanted to have a community where these people could dialogue. Tell me more in terms of what you're really hoping for it to be and to grow into.
Oh man, I'm really like so excited about it, because for me, it's like, it's grown so quickly, like, and it's literally been up for maybe a little bit over a month. Online, the presence is growing. But really, so I've like, when I'm like scrolling through Twitter and I'm seeing like, these photographers interacting with each other, I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, maybe they knew each other beforehand, but some of them have told me that they are also using this as a way to network amongst each other, talk to and, start those relationships with each other. So it's really cool for me. Like when I see, one of them, tag Black women photographers to retweet something, and I retweet it, I instantly, like, the first people to retweet are the fellow photographers. Like, they're supporting each other's work instantly. And so for me, it's like more things like that. I also want to, have like other programming events where I'm able to bring them all together on a more personal note. Just this past Friday, I was able to organize a portfolio review session because a lot of them indicated, when they were, filling out the form I sent out to be included in the database that they would want their portfolio reviewed. So I just had the first session and was with Nikon ambassadors. And a lot of them, were able to see each other for the first time. And it was like 2 people were in Lagos. One of the ambassadors was in Tokyo. Another one was in Australia. Like, it was just so cool. It's like, it's international community. And we all came together, regardless of time zones, to support each other, to really just being able to like share your work, for that alone. People don't talk about how that alone takes a lot of courage because you never know how people, may, interpret it and react to it. And they all came together on Zoom for the first time to get their work, shared and talk to like someone in the industry for like who's been doing this for decades, and you're able to like have that one-on-one time with them. So things like that is like where I want to continue, to take it, because a few of them had told me that was the first time they ever had their work criticized ever, and that's, imagine like a writer saying they never had their work edited, and so for these photographers, it's like, this is the first time they actually had that kind of editing. And it's huge, to have that for, your growth, your long-term, mentoring, like in trajectory, to even see like, how you can take your work a step further. But things like that is what I want to continue to bring. And hopefully down the line is like also like more partnerships with brands and whoever, I feel like is in line with like the mission, I guess. I was able to just do one with Visco. I shared that with 10 photographers. Visco's having a Black Joy Matters campaign, and I pitched to them, Black women photographers, and they immediately hopped onto it. And so for things like that is what I want to, continue to bring to these women.
So how are people getting on board here? Are you reaching out? Are people finding you via social networking? How does it all work?
It's a little bit of that. It's like, Twitter's my favorite platform, so I'm biased. I'm spending a lot more time on Twitter, spreading the word. And so organically, it's getting shared there, on Instagram, and a little bit on Facebook. Recently, actually, we got a shout out on MSNBC's AM Joy show in the morning. One of the guests gave a shout out to like what I was doing. And so that really helped, get the word out there, because I was like a national platform, right? That was the first time really like having that major exposure, because I've been able to have like a few written interviews, but those are to, those certain communities of that whatever publication. And so for me, it's all been organic. I don't have a budget for this. I'm just hoping that people, see that, how authentic I am about this, and how authentic and, how, these women are about it as well. And, just flock to that, I guess.
Yeah. And I think one of the best things about it is that it's a safe place in which these women to come together.
Right.
Photography is always been competitive, but back in my day, I felt that competition was often very cutthroat, just because there were so few opportunities, as few as there are now. There were even fewer back then, right? And so I remember the people that I hung around with, which were mostly men, with a peppering of women. They were always holding stuff very close to their vests, right? If they knew that their friends who they hanging out with, they were the competition. But as a more casual observer and someone who's not in the heat of it as much anymore, it seems like there's a general air of generosity that's happening about young photographers, that the attitude is not so much that, I got to hold on to the little that I got.
Right. No, exactly that. I think people are starting to realize there's enough room for everybody, right? Everyone can eat too. At least I hope people are starting to realize that. At least this community, that I'm building realizes that. I actually tweeted like a couple weeks ago, like, why is photography such a cool kids club? And then I was quickly corrected that it's cool like men's club, because of the reasons like you stated. And for me, it's like, I'm not gonna hold on. don't know much. I'm very young in my career, but what I do know, I'm not going to hold on to that. Why would I hoard that information when I know I got it from somebody else myself? And a lot of the times, like things like that is what holds us back, right? When we're not able to come together, when we're not able to, uplift each other. It sounds very cliche or corny or whatever the case may be, but it's really that simple, right? Like we could be further if we all came together to share that information, share that knowledge, to see, okay, I know this, you don't know this, so let's come to the table. Like I can be able to be the expert on this, and you can be an expert on that, and we can just see where what we can build together. I know that, I've had like unofficial mentors in my life, and with their guidance, it's helped me tremendously. And I think that's what it really is about, is just having that kind of mentoring, for that way you don't have to like take the long road there. You can hopefully be able to, skip some steps. You can learn from others' mistakes or whatever the case may be, to get to whatever spot you're trying to get to. But yeah, I think there's already enough barriers that hurt us, and there's already enough gatekeepers in this industry that we shouldn't gatekeep each other, kind of thing.
The racial uprisings in the 60s and in the 70s, and the ones in LA in the was it late 80s, early 90s? I'm starting to forget now. It's all becoming a blur. But those events led for a lot of opportunities for Black writers and photographers to have the door open, because especially in the 60s, white reporters, photographers didn't want to go in the heat of that. Mm-hmm. And so they would hire these photographers who eventually, found a way of being able to get their foot in the door. But the thing is, such moments of unrest, though they do create an opportunity in the moment, the issue is always making it a lasting change. There's an opportunity now. So how do you see this from your perspective as different from similar situations in the past?
I mean, that is something I've been pondering it keeps me up really late. And I honestly, because for me, it's like, for example, the COVID-19 relief fund alone, like I saw those donations pour in quickly the first week. Slowly after that, it slowly died down. 5 donations turned into 1 donation kind of thing on a weekly, so it's like I saw that in real time with that, the COVID-19 fund. But I think for me, it's like, it all depends on what I do, like personally, to keep that momentum going. Like if I make it clear that, we're not going anywhere, and that's how I've been communicating, kind of thing, like we are here, and we have no plans of going anywhere. And I think people are realizing that. I think some people have, had those like internal conversations with themselves that maybe they felt like they were complicit in the past, that, maybe they do support for a certain time frame. And then when the headlines or whatever, fades away, so does their support. And now I feel like more people have at least privately told me that, they are here for the long game. They are here, their invitations to help don't expire, kind of thing. And so that has been encouraging. I also feel like, these folks in the community, they also feel like charged up in a way that, maybe they're feeding off each other's energy or whatever the case may be. But I think a lot of them also realize that now they have this voice, and now they have a platform willing to listen and amplify their voice. So they are going to continue the work themselves. Regardless, we, have been doing the work, and we're going to continue doing the work. It's just hopefully that everyone sticks around and, supports us in this journey. Because for me, I know, like when they say it's like not a marathon, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon kind of thing. Like that's how I feel. I know it's going to be a challenge. I know that we also have 2 pandemics we're going through. We have a national, presidential election. Like people are going to be busy, and people are going to have their heads elsewhere. And I get that. But I think, all of that can be true at the same time. And I think as long as we continue to do the work and control what we can, then I think we'll be okay. I'll keep sharing privately, like spreading, like I've shared the link to the site to hundreds of people. Like I'll keep doing things like that. I'll keep checking in, like for me, it's like, I want to be able to like pop into somebody's inbox like, oh, by the way, you said you don't have the hiring capabilities right now because of COVID. Okay. So it's like 2 months later. Is your situation still like that? Like, those are like the different things like I plan on doing, to remind people that we're here. And, you said you couldn't hire then. 2 months later, like, okay, it's a new quarter, fiscal quarter. Like, a lot of these brands and organizations will have money, a budget, starting like October, November. I'm going to be in their inboxes like, hey, y'all, I know you guys just had your budget planning meeting. Things like that is how I hope to, keep the fire going, I guess.
And I think that's something that any freelancer, regardless of their race, their color,
right,
has to have an understanding of. Because just waiting for someone to give you an opportunity sometimes is just not enough. I mean, you may have met them once and gotten your business card, but there's an amount of hustle involved.
Oh, yeah,
sometimes you got to make yourself a little annoying just so you can be remembered. Not to the point that people want to drown you in a pool, but because when an opportunity comes up, there's certain names that automatically come up, and you just want to be one of those names that comes up.
Exactly. I mean, no, exactly that. Eventually, I want to be able to have more people, privately speaking, for us, advocating for us in rooms that, we may not know about. That's, that would be the goal. But until then, it's like you said, I'm going to do my part to try and create these opportunities, because we can't wait. We can't, wait for someone to do it for us. And so, yeah, I think it's all of what you said.
So are the people that you're dialoguing with, is it both for editorial and commercial purposes?
Yes, it's a lot of editors, a lot of like creative directors. I'm also talking to people in like fine art and whatever spaces, really just anyone who would appreciate or have the need to hire a photographer is who I'm dialoguing with. Also, just a lot of different brands who may only think about these kind of initiatives during like Black History Month, Women's History Month, like things like that. The people who've also, a lot of brands who've recently put out a Black Lives Matter statement are people who I've reached out to see, how much do Black Lives matter, and, like kind of thing to them, seeing where they are in terms of their internal, like, we dedicate whatever. Like, I'm also reaching out to those people, to see if it's not too late for us to be a part of those conversations that they having, internally to support the Black community.
Thanks for the many kind words about recent episodes of the show. I was especially pleased to hear the positive response to my conversation with Dwayne Michaels. He had been on my short list for a very long time, and I was so happy to finally make it happen. And it never would have happened without your support after so many years. If you enjoyed that episode, or any others that we've produced recently, you can support our work going forward by becoming a Patreon supporter. You can contribute $5, $10, $20 or more a month by visiting patreon.com/thecandidframe. Along with many other listeners, you are making a huge difference and help us to deliver the best show possible to you every week. So if you enjoy the work we're doing, please come on as a Patreon supporter today. Thank you. I was reading an article yesterday, and I wish I could remember specifically who it was, but it was about a Black woman who was working for a company, and she had left the company. Oh, it was a PRX. Yes. I don't know if you had a chance to read the article, but a woman of color who had worked there had left, and she had left this, wrote this letter which was released publicly. She left for a variety of reasons, but one of her concerns was that she was being paid appreciably less than other people in her business, even though her work was, if comparable, if not more so than her peers. And she had to go through hoops in order to be able to even get a raise at some point, because she had to prove her worth. And I think that is something that experienced a lot by women, but especially women of color. And I think in the world of photography, it's no less an issue. In terms of the dialogue that you're hearing, I think I'm really curious to hear about dialogue about financials, about really working for what you're worth, getting paid what you're worth, and not simply being seen as the less expensive option just because people think they can get away with it. So tell me about these kinds of discussions that your circle of photographers are discussing, because I think it's an important one, especially now.
Oh, it's huge. It really is vital, and I don't think we can talk about it enough. As part of a large group, some of those questions came up, in the portfolio review session I was mentioning, I think the first 15 minutes was Q&A, and we spent 10 minutes talking about financial literacy and financial, how do you know how to charge? When do you up for your pricing, and that things like that is what some of the questions that were posed to these ambassadors. But those are the kind of larger themes that I'd want to do more programming around, to see how I can help not just bring this all to their attention, because it's not something that they don't think about constantly. It's not something that they don't already know. It's more so of actionable things, to actually say this is something I can take away from it and can apply it to my life right now, kind of thing, is what I'm hoping to be able to do in the near future. Haven't started doing anything with that with regards to what you're saying, but I've been following those conversations. I read that letter, that woman's letter today, actually. So for me, it's even myself, those are things that I've struggled with. I can probably assume I've been underpaid in other situations. And I know as I first started out, I was like, oh, am I charging too much? Oh, or do I lower my rate for this person because I don't want to miss out on this gig? Or, I've had those conversations. I've had those issues in my own work. And then I realized that I really just have to set a standard for myself. And whatever my standard is, I can't lower it. And so that is just how I've been able to move in maybe the last 3-4 years. But it wasn't easy, right? Because you always feel like you're missing out, or you always feel like, oh, maybe I should have just done it because of the money. But then it comes out of habit, and then you will, if you keep changing and bending to whoever, you'll never stop bending. And so I realized that I need to, have my own guidelines, my own set of rules that I followed, realized what my worth was, and that people will pay, people pay the Kardashians for whatever they're selling, so people will pay. The Kardashians can put out whatever, and the people will pay whatever price. People don't question their price for whatever things they're selling. So if people aren't questioning that price, the people don't question, the price of their favorite other brands and whoever, they shouldn't question my rates and my price either, right? And as long as you communicate that to your friends, especially your family, you have to communicate that to everyone around you first, and let that be clear that this is my rate, this is my worth. There's no family discount. There's no, I always see a lot of friends always post, if you can pay for, like I said, the Kardashians, because I don't know, I think I probably read something the other day about Kim, but if you can pay for whatever, you can pay for my brand, you should be able to support your friends first. And I think there's some truth to that, right? We don't tell Beyonce to lower her price for her concert tickets. We pay whatever her price for her concert tickets are, and we attend the show. And so
you attend the show.
I don't want the Beehive to attack me. Okay, I love Beyonce. But my point is that Beyonce has her worth, known to the world, and we respect that. And we, as photographers, as creatives, we need to set our own personal worths and make sure that is clear. Have those boundaries or whatever in place, that no one dares to question it as well. That we have that same kind of respect.
Yeah, that has been a long issue for photographers since the day they invented the camera.
Exactly, because now there's the iPhones. The iPhone 11s could do some great work, but it's not the same. But a lot of people feel like, oh, I could just do it myself. It really does hurt us in a way, but here we are.
That's the importance of being able to sort of, like you said, establish your value, that you bring a unique skill set. And right. I think that's especially important for photographers of color to recognize, because unfortunately there are some people that saying, well, if you don't want it, then I got another brother and sister who'll take the job, for the pennies I'm offering. And it's like you have to go, that may well be the case, but that doesn't mean that I have to compromise what my worth is in order to secure the job.
Right.
And that can be a hard choice when you're just trying to pay the bills, but it's a very slippery slope, which is one of the reasons why I think it's so important that you're creating the kind of community that you are creating, so that everyone can sort of dialogue and go, hey, no, we're all in this together, and we can't be cutting each other off at the knees, because we're just injuring ourselves in the long run. And being that you accomplished a lot in your young years, and I was reading all the accolades and things that you had done. And one of the things that struck me is that you gave credit to your mom, because you saw her, really struggle a bit, when you were coming up as a kid. And I really wanted to talk about that. What did you see happening with your mother as you were growing up that sort of affected the way that you look at yourself and your career now?
Oof, man, how much time do we have? honestly, it's because, like, when they say, like, I think it's like women or Black women have to work twice as hard kind of thing to be, things like that is what I saw with my mom. I mean, not just twice, like 4 times as hard to even be on the same like playing field as her peers that, we're not Black, we're not immigrants. When my parents first came to the States, they had heavy accents, right? That a lot of people already discriminated against based off of that. People now it's more so of like your name on your application, and then when you show up to the interview, people are surprised. Like, I've had that happen a few times myself. Like, my name is Polly, and so maybe they're assuming a young white woman, but no, here I am, a Black woman. But like it's the same with them. It's like, and along another conversation, it's like, partially, why I was named Polly kind of thing. We're giving these names to try to make it easier. I have an African name outside of my, my American name. So, but, seeing her, they came here with nothing, as most of us did. There was not a level playing field with that. And so, working 3-4 jobs, commuting. I remember times when, she was studying when we were in Kansas, at the university, and we were in the library with her, right? Just hanging out with her as she was just studying and just getting, her higher ed degrees. And we were there alongside because, childcare and all this other stuff, it's expensive. For me, I think it's a part of the reason why, I do try to go so hard, I guess, why I feel, I see how ambitious and how, I've seen how my mom has had to advocate for herself. And so for me, I just try to do the same because like we said, no one's going to do that for us. And so for me, it really, I guess, is the reason of why, people always talk about your purpose and why, and, that is part of it for me. And so she can do all of that with, literally nothing. I'm fortunate to actually grow up with something. And now even more so, I grew up in the age of social media when I feel like everything is like at my disposal. If I want to talk to someone in Lagos, I can be able to like do that instantaneously, right? That is what she didn't have. And so for me, it's like, I don't know. I know there's barriers to whatever for myself still, but nothing close to what she went through, nothing close to, what you went through as well, in your career, I'm assuming. And so for me, it really just feels so simple as to why, why I have my drive, I guess.
You mentioned how you use Twitter a lot, and right now you work for a public radio, and you serve their marketing in terms of not multimedia, but in terms of social media. Right. So you could probably teach me a class.
I'm ready to teach master classes in social media. Yes, I can.
I know. So, everybody's on it, but I can't say that everyone knows how to use it, especially people who are creative. So what how can you school this old man in terms of what I'm doing wrong and what I should be doing?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I think this applies to anyone, not just all the old mans listening. I think personally it's like, okay, as soon as you establish what you want, like what are you looking for? Like what audiences are you trying to reach? Who are you actually trying to communicate your message to? What is your message, first of all? But that's another conversation. But, as soon as you establish who you're actually trying to reach, I think that's the first step, because a lot of people, they just hop on, oh, now there's TikTok. I need to have a TikTok. I need to be on TikTok. I'm like, but for what reason? Like, is there an audience there that you're trying to reach? Like, does it make sense to your brand, or are you just on there because it's the next current wave? Because there's always going to be another wave. There's going to be something else after TikTok. Before TikTok, there was Vine. So there's always going to be something, right? We saw quickly how Snapchat rose and then quickly fell, right? So, you really have to be able to think about what you're looking for and what you want. Like, what are you trying to get out of these different platforms? For myself, Twitter is like I said, my favorite, because I'm able to, I get the news. I'm able to actually like search hashtags and, find communities that way. Oftentimes I use Twitter advanced search, and I search like Black photographer and see what populates, Black women photographer, see what populates. And that is just like one hack of like I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for other Black photographers, Black women photographers to, communicate with, to interact with, to, network with. I know I'm looking for photo editors. So I literally search photo editor. And a lot of these people have that in their bio. And so I was able to put a global list of 90 photo editors in like 10 minutes. I was able to reach like an international list just because I searched photo editors. A lot of these folks have it in their bio. It all populated, and I made a Twitter list that now is a public resource to everybody, who follows Black women photographers. They can just look at our list and they see photo editors is one of the lists that I've created, and literally in 10 minutes, just because, I know what I'm looking for. I know the different tools that Twitter provides, and I just use them, to my advantage in that way. And then to what we were saying, I don't hoard that information. I shared it. Like, it's literally like 90 photo editors from across the country and internationally. And I also have a list for creative directors. I have one for director of photography and so on, because it's like, I'm very clear, the targeted audience for myself and for this community. And so once you have that established, I think the rest falls to place, because the rest is just like, it's just your voice. It's just your brand. You're just like, whatever you feel, whatever your voice is, once you have a clear voice, people will flock to that. The rest, I guess, falls into place.
With the different things that you're doing, there's a lot of stuff that can lock you onto a desk. So,
trust me.
So what's happening with your photography?
Oh, yes.
There's taking a back seat right now.
Yeah. My photography has taken a backseat. More so in the terms of like just these past few months, because, like you said, with the current news events, just like especially the related to, police brutality, like a lot of that just like mentally was just draining that for me, that I didn't have any ounce to like create. So not even just because like I have a full-time job, and not just because we're in the middle of pandemic, like I just also was not feeling motivated to go out and create or to document, the different uprisings. And so like I personally just didn't feel like doing that. Now I'm a better mind state that I actually feel ready to go pick up and pick an assignment or whatever the case may be if I'm asked to. I'm actually thinking about going down to the historic, the anniversary march on the 28th. I'm thinking about that. I'm not sure yet, but because it's in a different city and state. So for me, I feel like it's taking a backseat because of personal reasons, but now it's also taking a backseat because I am so busy. I have my 9 to 5, and then when I don't have my 9 to 5, this is like my 5 to 9, and actually past 9, that's being generous because I'm often up. That's an understatement. It's not 5 to 9, it's like 5 to 2 a.m. Because like I said, all of these folks are not just US based, it's international. So like I'm posting in different time zones kind of thing, with that kind of thinking in mind. Like I don't want, someone in London to think I'm only I'm only gonna have tweets, for the American folks. Like, no, it's like I'm trying to like spread that wealth, and eventually, I feel like as time goes on, I'll have a better system in place. Like, I'll actually schedule my tweets in advance or whatever the case may be for like Black women photographers. But right now, it's literally just whenever I have my phone and I tweet, whatever. It's like how I'm going by it. So I don't know. It's always hard. I think everyone has had that struggle of finding a balance, the life-work balance. I think everyone has had that, regardless if they're building a community or not. And so for myself, it's trying to find that balance. I've been able to, take daily walks. Minus today because of the VP news. I didn't take my walk today, but I've been able to take daily walks. I think I've only missed twice outside of today for the past month and a half, which is huge. It's like, that was like huge for me. Like, I'm actually committed something to myself. Like, I have set a time, an hour for myself every day, to try and find that balance. Granted, I should probably schedule in more than an hour, but it's a start. You got to start somewhere. So, that's where I'm starting to find that balance. And within my daily walks, I've been taking like iPhone photos of like, things I've seen, like just the trees and the water, like, and actually been tweeting out like balance, like tweeting those photos out. So that's like the only like photography I've done lately. But I think also, since we've all been forced to slow down, I've also reevaluating like the type of work I want to do moving forward. And so for me, it's like, I don't want to just go out and pick, for the sake of it, especially trying to be more thoughtful and intentional because we're dealing with this pandemic. So, for me, it's also, I'm okay with having that backseat right now as I continue to think about what I want to, do moving forward. I would really want to be thoughtful and create meaningful work. And so what does that mean for me personally? And how can I achieve that during a pandemic? It's like what I've been, thinking about. And so I think for all of those reasons, I'm okay with having my photography take a backseat because I know what I'm doing is much bigger than that. And so I'm okay. I'm at peace with it right now.
Well, my last question that I ask each guest is I ask them to recommend another photographer, and it can be anyone. Someone you've long admired, someone you've recently discovered. So who would that one photographer be and why?
Oh, man. I just immediately had 20, okay. In terms of what we've been talking about, I'll recommend Alexis Hunley. She's a Black queer female photographer based in Los Angeles, California. She actually created I want to say 10 slides that for Black photographers and really just any creatives to use as a resource because she's one of the Black photographers who've been bombarded with requests to do free work. Some of your favorite brands and organizations and outlets have, approached her to document different, the protests and do other things for free. For the sake of exposure. And so she created a resource on her Instagram, and she has it as her pinned tweet of slides of how to politely tell all of these, brands, no, I'm not going to, respectively, I'm not going to do free work. And so that's what she did, I want to say last month, because, we were still we're still in the thick of it, but she was, getting just so many requests. And it's like we said earlier, it's a lot of these photographers, a lot of people don't know when to draw that line of what they say yes and what they say no to. And, it's really exploitative of these, organizations to ask us to do anything for free in general, but especially during this time. And so she created that as a resource because, for a photographer who may feel they have to say yes because they don't know when the next opportunity will come around, that kind of thing, it's unfair. It's really unfair that what they're doing. And so she created that. I think it's amazing. Her work is so amazing. Yes, that's my one photographer.
And that sounds like a damn good one. No, Polly, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. I'm truly grateful for your time.
Thanks to Polly for joining us. Find out more about her and her work by visiting polyirungu.com as well as blackwomenphotographers.com. If you're a devoted listener and subscribe to the show, write us a review on whatever service you listen to podcasts. Those reviews have allowed us to grow. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel and our mailing list. On the YouTube channel, I offer critiques on images submitted by TCF listeners like you, while the mailing list keeps you updated with all TCF events, including workshops and more. Sign up today. And remember, you can support the show by contributing to our Patreon effort or make a one-time or recurring donation via PayPal. Thanks to Jeffrey Edwards, Jason Bone, Denise M. Riggs, Chandra Ackberger, Susan Sanders, and many more for their recent contributions. We also provide a series of ebooks on photography available for purchase on our website. It's my way of sharing my experience and knowledge, and another way for you to support the show. And if you haven't found every episode of the show on wherever you listen to podcasts, download the Candid Frame app, which is available for both Apple iOS and Android. And because of your generosity, it's free to download and use. No additional purchases are required. The Candid Frame's audio engineer is Martin Taylor, who you can find at theothermartintaylor.com. The show's senior producer is Cynthia Parker, and our music is from Kevin MacLeod, whose royalty-free music can be found at Incompetech.com. And this is Ibadian X, and this is The Candid Frame.